In a gubernatorial campaign, a candidate puts forth solutions to problems they see, and sometimes promises to get those problems solved in the first 100 days of office or the first year in office. How does a governor accomplish that effectively?
You try your best, but it's almost impossible. I mean, big problems take longer than that to solve. And plus, when you get into office, you learn things you never knew in the campaign. You go in and see the budget and really understand just how difficult the budget is. You run into opposition in the legislature you didn't know was there. I mean, the governor's promised to do marijuana. Well, he's trying to do marijuana, I think, but he's finding out in the legislature, for instance, he's getting heavy opposition from the head of the Black Caucus in the Senate, and he didn't expect that. So it's going to take longer now to make the compromises and implement the policy. So you can set a direction, and you can move forward, but it's very hard to keep up with those timetables you do in the campaign.
What happens when people hold you accountable to those timetables?
You explain to people what the problem is. For instance, when I was governor, one thing I said, the last thing I want to do in the world is raise taxes. I said, that's a last resort. Well, when I was elected, we went into the worst recession since the Great Depression. And all of a sudden, we had no money whatsoever in government. We had so little money, we weren't able to fund the schools. Now, I'd run an education, too. I was going to do so much for the schools. I wasn't going to cut school spending early in my first term. So I did one or the other. I made a compromise with the legislature. We had a very small raise in taxes to fund the schools. And I said, as soon as the economy gets better, and we know things better off than we do now, then I'll lower taxes. And I did that. But the public understood. I tried to explain it to them, and they understood. And we took polls after I raised taxes, or after I agreed to the compromise. I lost 1 point maybe in the ranking, that's all, because people understood that in order to fund the schools, we had to do that, even if it was temporary. So I think you explain to people what you have to do and why you have to do it. And my experience with people is they do understand.
How do you see Governor Murphy's cooperation with the legislature in getting the promises he made in the campaign accomplished, his agenda accomplished?
Well, I like this governor. I've always liked Phil Murphy. But you got to understand, he's the first governor we've elected in my lifetime who's had no political experience whatsoever. Now that's tough, like not being experienced in anything else you go into. So he's been learning on the job a bit. And one of the things he's been learning about, I think, is the legislature. You got to respect them. You got to work with them. Got to understand their needs in their own districts. And it takes a while. It took me 2 or 3 years before I really started working smoothly with the legislature. It helped a lot because I'd been in the legislature for 10 years, so a lot of them were friends already. He hasn't got that advantage.
So some people are saying he certainly has stepped off on the wrong foot in terms of the legislature. Do you agree with that?
Well, with the legislature, you got to do two things. One is you got to understand them, you got to work with them, you got to work with them to cooperate on their issues. But the other thing is, there's a reason the New Jersey Constitution made the governor the most powerful governor in the country. You have got to set the agenda. You have got to have your own priorities, and you got to fight for those priorities with the legislature sometimes, and you can't give way on that. So the legislature's not only got to understand that you understand them and are going to work with them, but they've also got to understand that you've got your priorities.
The end of a new governor's first year in office goes right into the next fiscal budget. How difficult is that for a new governor when some of the promises that have been made in the campaign still aren't moving along in terms of solving those issues?
You got to do two things with those promises. One is you got to fulfill all the ones you can and work it into your new budget, because it's the first budget that you actually make yourself. Secondly is some of those promises you've got to stop trying to do, because you've found out and you've learned in office that you really shouldn't do them for whatever reason. They're not in the best interest of the state of New Jersey, even though there may have been interest in the campaign. So you got to look at some of those things and figure, well, I've learned now, that's probably not practical. I probably shouldn't be doing that. All right, how do I explain people that I've been in office now, I've learned, and this is now a course correction. This is what I think we should be doing now. So the great governors, in my mind, do two things. One is they do try to fulfill all the campaign promises that they can that's practical in the best interest of the state. But the really good ones step back from some of those promises and say, no, now I'm in office, I've learned I shouldn't have said that because it isn't practical. And I'm now going to go the other direction, but I've got to explain to people why I'm doing it in their best interests.
The voice of experience.
Thank you.
Governor Kean, thank you very much.